So after watching 2 episodes of Spy Classroom at this point in time, I feel like it's safe to say why I'm sold on this show. You have Assassination Classroom style vibes with the students trying to attack their teacher and defeat them, arguably maybe in some more violent methods than what Assassination Classroom did, since I really feel like at certain points they were literally going for the killing blow. And the fact of the matter is, you also have these spy missions that are going to such lengths to be biological warfare that one wrong move, and I mean, we could argue they could maybe destroy a country if something got released that shouldn't. It's a really fun watch. I mean, it's one of those things where you can't argue it's not fast-paced because they cover 30 days in 2 episodes, right? They basically were trying to defeat their teacher for 30 days prior to this impossible mission, and as we see in this episode, they never got a "I surrender," but they did get a thank you from Mr. Sensei over here. So it's one of those shows that if you're hoping to see every single moment of these characters' lives, we clearly aren't, but if the direction they're going is we get this almost Assassination Classroom style persona where every so often they try to beat their teacher and try to make him surrender, and then they go on these missions and we see some impossible things occur, I can safely say this show will be for me all the way to the home stretch. Now, I do have a full live reaction to today's episode available on the Patreon if you want to see it, so do consider supporting if you so wish, but let's talk about this one. I was expecting, based quickly into this episode, that maybe over a couple of episodes they would cover the full 30 days. But it seems like no, like we're already kicking into high gear into this biological mission. And honestly, on one hand, it's a little bit of a shame because I was digging so much of seeing them try to overtake him. I mean, the moment when he was sleeping and they try to stab them, but it's just a pillow and obviously he's sitting at his desk. Just the simple moments of seeing someone so badass be able to just turn the tables on them and not feel smug about it, but more so, the only moment that was a little more sarcastic and salt in the wounds was when they initially tried to just swarm him with no plan at all, and he just called them like fools, like, hey, come at me when you're not going to be idiots about this, more or less. And I thought that was warranted. And I really enjoyed that stuff. Now, it's possible we may never see that side of the show again, and maybe it will just strictly be on this mission for the remainder of the season, or they'll just keep going to the next mission. But in terms of looking at what I've seen so far over episodes 1 and 2, when I look at the first episode, there was some good characterization with Lily. There was this interesting idea of like someone who's so badass and is able to just predict things and do things in such a clever way, but is so horrible at teaching, he needs someone to show him the way. And then when it comes to this episode, you do get that Assassination Classroom vibes, where the characters are working together in order to stop their teacher. In this case, it's not because the teacher's going to destroy Earth, it's because their teacher's saying, if you do this, we're going to be able to nail this mission, no ifs, ands, or buts. And just to see the direction they're going with this kind of like humorous atmosphere, I mean, it's not often you can say the most fan service you got in an anime episode is the male teacher taking a shower as he casually wins a mission, not because of really looking like he did all too much, other than the soap on the floor made them trip and fall. But the Chad energy radiating from Claws, man, there's not too many shows that can just have a character butt-ass naked stand in front of characters being like, I'm not embarrassed. Not only is he probably proud of whatever he's presenting, the fact that he's like, I don't get embarrassed, and no spy should get embarrassed just because someone sees them naked. There's some good humor in this show, but it's not afraid to show that this man has lost things. So we've seen him over last episode and this episode. He's painting something called Family, I think is the title he gave it. And it's just like a lot of reds. There's crimson reds, there's softer reds, and it's like, what is he painting and why? And in this episode, we learn about how he was taken off of a mission and the remainder of his group ended up dying on this impossible mission. And when you hear that and the fact that it's titled like Family and how much he cared about them, you can really see why like it is just blood, it is just death, and that seems to be why he's just painting it nonstop. And to see how, yes, quickly they kind of get accustomed to each other, but you have to look at it from their time frame. It was a month fully. Like I think it was about 10 days in their world by the time they started saying, we trust you and we want to learn from you, right? And by the end of this episode, about 30 days has passed since they all met each other. For the anime watcher, we've seen them for only like, 45 minutes, give or take? But for them, it's been a month's time. So for them to get accustomed and be able to fall asleep in front of him and basically trust that he'll have their backs, I mean, when you get that flashback with someone basically saying, like, if anyone ever falls asleep near you, it means that they trust you and you need to protect them with your life. So it's really nice to see how after seeing that, he then adjusted the mission, right? He then put them in the opposite area it almost felt like he was trying to say, like, I'm going to tackle the most dangerous part of this mission, and I want you to tackle the other side where you have the greatest chance of survival. To me, that's how I interpreted it, because otherwise, why would he switch their positions from where they were going to start out until after he saw them sleep there, like he wants to protect them sort of a thing. But it's going to be fun to see what they do. And it's honestly hard to predict the pacing of the show. Like, usually I think it'd be pretty easy to say, oh, a mission like this will last 3 episodes, and then they'll regroup, and then they'll go on the next one. A show like this, we've had 30 days covered in 2 episodes, so it's hard to say, like, next episode could completely resolve it and we could do a time skip, or it will completely slow down the pacing. I don't know. But I'm not opposed to quicker pacing in terms of not seeing every little detail, as long as you can sell me on the idea of the story and have me care at least about a couple characters. And so far, I do care about a couple of the characters. I think they're doing a good job with Claus. I think the idea of his personal backstory, the idea that even he himself admits there's one person he's never beaten, even though they all look at him as like this impossible teacher that no one could ever defeat. I like the fact that you have Lily from last week, and just the idea of the cast, I think it works overall. I'm not here to say it's my favorite show of the season, or I think it's the absolute best of the season, but it's a show that has 2 episodes in a row made me say, this wasn't quite what I was expecting, but I'm more eager to see where it's going to go. And I think if you look at the last episode, episode 1, the first half of it, I think, was a little weaker than the second half of episode 1. And when it comes to episode 2, I think the first half of episode 2 is slightly stronger than the second half of episode 2. And overall, even when the show slows down for me, or I'm not as invested as I previously was, I still find myself anticipating what's going to come next. And I think you can look at some simple moments like the pickpocket scene as an example. It's really cool when you go back on a rewatch, because I didn't even notice the dude pass. The fact that basically the police are like, hey, this is a pickpocket area, we're going to pat you down, make sure you don't have it, after they literally just stole the wallet off someone. And the fact that I thought the joke they were going to go, which honestly, you've probably seen it in many series before, where did they hide it? I mean, how did they smuggle that? You can basically get where I'm coming from. I don't want to specifically say it because YouTube won't like it, but the fact that they ended up, their wallet that they stole ended up getting stolen from them as he passes by. And I thought that was a really clever directing technique, because I wasn't necessarily expecting, because they were like, oh, should I knock him out? And there's like a little vial that pops up sort of a thing. And instead, they went with a more clever direction than just beating your way to victory or, you know, making a goofy joke about where did she hide it sort of a thing. And the fact that we're going like full biological warfare, like, I don't know, man, like this could be the plot of a Resident Evil movie or game. If one wrong move goes away, I mean, who knows what could be released? Like, they could have mutated bodies, which they already kind of teased. There's just a lot of bad things that could pop up, and whether they all make it out of this mission alive or not remains to be seen. I mean, they're already establishing that his first group didn't make it, right? So the fact of the matter is, they're not afraid to massively take out characters. And if he ends up having to have an entire new cast after this as well, I'm not sure if he'll have it. But I do like the fact that Claus, for being as like badass as he is, and someone who seems like he always has the answer, he does listen to authority. When he gets criticized about his teaching or the fact that he's not taking their feelings into consideration, he acknowledges that and actually actively tries to correct it after being scolded. And the fact that just everything about him feels like he doesn't have the answers, even though he's arguably one of the most talented people in this world, that's in return why he does listen to those that can prove him wrong, in the case of Lily as making her team leader, or even some of the people he works with sort of a thing. But yeah, I really liked this. I'd say I liked episode 2 slightly more than episode 1, and if that's going to be the trend, then I'm just going to love the show by its end. But let me know what you're feeling about Spy Classroom episode 2 and the show as a whole so far. Are you going to keep on watching it? Do let me know. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Like I mentioned, there's a full live reaction available on the Patreon, and while you're there, you can also get yourself a video shoutout like a few we're about to get here. So we got VG Guy 95, Jessica Compton, and Jose. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.